There is a sentence I hear in almost every single consultation about blood sugar, and it usually arrives with a kind of exhausted resignation. I guess I just have to give up carbs. As if the only lever anyone has ever handed them is subtraction. Cut this, remove that, live smaller. And I want to start today by telling you something that contradicts almost everything you've been told. Something that has quietly changed the trajectory for hundreds of people I've worked with over the years. The fastest, most sustainable way to bring blood sugar down is not about elimination at all. It's about addition. Specific foods, used with intention, that speak directly to the biology driving your numbers up in the first place. And the results aren't temporary. People keep these improvements for months, for years, often without needing the medications they were initially told were inevitable. So today we're walking through 10 of those foods, one at a time, slowly enough that you understand not just what to eat, but why it works inside your body. Because understanding the mechanism is what makes a habit stick. Nobody keeps doing something indefinitely just because they were told to. People keep doing things once they understand what's actually happening underneath the surface. Let's start with the part almost nobody explains clearly, even in a full appointment, let alone the rushed 12 minutes most people get with their doctor. Elevated blood sugar rarely begins with sugar itself. It begins with a hormone called insulin. Think of insulin as a key, and the surface of every cell in your body as a locked door. When insulin works the way it's supposed to, it slots into receptors on the cell's surface and opens that door, letting glucose move out of your bloodstream and into the cell, where it becomes usable energy. For years, sometimes decades, of dietary patterns that send blood sugar spiking up and crashing down repeatedly, those cellular doors start to stop responding. The key turns, but the lock has grown stiff. We call this insulin resistance, and the body's response to it is to produce more and more insulin, trying to force the door open through sheer volume. Your pancreas works harder, your blood sugar climbs anyway, and the conventional next step is usually a medication that adds even more insulin into a system that is already saturated with it. This isn't a conspiracy, it's simply how the system is built, with no time and no incentive structure designed to teach people how food itself communicates directly with those same insulin receptors. So that's exactly what we're going to do right now, food by food. The first food belongs in nearly every kitchen, and almost nobody reaches for it, which is a shame, because it might be the single most underrated tool on this entire list. Fenugreek seeds. Small, amber, slightly bitter, sold for a couple of dollars in the spice aisle of any grocery store. Inside that unassuming seed is a soluble fiber called galactomannan, and when it meets liquid in your stomach, it transforms into a thick gel. That gel physically slows the rate at which your stomach empties carbohydrates into your small intestine. Instead of sugar flooding into your bloodstream all at once, triggering a frantic insulin response, it trickles in gradually. No flood, no panic, no overcorrection. Fenugreek also contains a specific amino acid that encourages your pancreas to release insulin more efficiently, while helping your muscle tissue absorb glucose more readily. The combined effect on fasting blood sugar can show up within 1 to 2 weeks of consistent use. To use it, soak a teaspoon of whole seeds in a glass of water overnight, then drink the water and eat the softened seeds before breakfast. If the bitterness is difficult at first, grind the seeds and stir a half teaspoon into yogurt or scrambled eggs instead. Start with a small amount because this fiber is potent and your digestive system needs a few days to adjust to it. The second food is sitting in your cupboard right now, though there's a strong chance it's the wrong version of it. Cinnamon. Most grocery store cinnamon is cassia, which contains a compound called coumarin that can stress the liver when consumed daily in large amounts. The version you actually want is Ceylon cinnamon, sometimes labeled true cinnamon, milder in flavor, and considerably safer for everyday use. What makes cinnamon biologically active is a family of plant compounds called polyphenols, which behave in ways remarkably similar to insulin itself. They help your insulin receptors grip glucose more tightly and slow the rate at which your stomach empties after a meal. This isn't folk wisdom. Research from the Human Nutrition Program at the USDA found that under half a teaspoon daily produced a measurable reduction in fasting glucose among adults with type 2 diabetes. Use about 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon each day, stirred into oatmeal, coffee, or a smoothie, ideally paired with whatever carbohydrate-containing meal you're about to eat, since that's exactly the moment you want your receptors working harder. The third food is one I want you to pay especially close attention to because the distinction matters enormously. Not full-grown broccoli. Broccoli sprouts, the tiny 3-day-old version of the plant, harvested before it matures. These sprouts contain somewhere between 50 and 100 times more of a compound called sulforaphane than a mature head of broccoli, and sulforaphane does something none of the other foods on this list accomplish quite as directly. It travels to your liver and quiets down what's essentially an overnight glucose factory. While you sleep, your liver naturally produces some sugar to keep your body fueled through the night. But in insulin resistance, it often overproduces dramatically, which is precisely why so many people wake up to a high fasting number despite not having eaten anything for 10 or 12 hours. A study from Lund University in Sweden gave concentrated sulforaphane to people with type 2 diabetes and observed measurable reductions in fasting blood sugar, with the strongest improvements occurring in those whose blood sugar had been hardest to control through other means. You can grow broccoli sprouts inexpensively in a jar on your counter or purchase them in most produce sections. A small handful, roughly 1/4 cup, on a salad or sandwich most days is sufficient. Keep them raw or only lightly wilted, since high heat destroys the active compound. Every food so far has worked through one of two pathways: slowing the arrival of sugar or quieting the inflammation that keeps cells from hearing insulin's signal. The next several foods start to reshape the actual meals you're already eating, which is where this becomes genuinely sustainable, rather than one more list of supplements to remember. The fourth food is the avocado, and it's badly misunderstood by people trying to manage their blood sugar. Many avoid it out of fear of its calorie content, and that fear costs them one of the most blood sugar-friendly foods available. The fat in an avocado is monounsaturated, the same family found in olive oil, and combined with its fiber content, it slows the absorption of an entire meal. Add half an avocado to a plate of rice or toast, and you haven't removed the carbohydrate, you've installed a brake on how quickly it becomes blood sugar. The rise becomes gentle rather than sharp. Over time, monounsaturated fat has also been shown to improve insulin sensitivity, meaning your cells respond to insulin's signal more readily. It's also one of the easiest habits to sustain because it makes meals more satisfying and reduces the urge to snack an hour later. Half an avocado daily is a reasonable target, whether on eggs, mashed onto whole grain toast, or added to a salad alongside a starch. The fifth food, chia seeds, demonstrates its own mechanism the moment you put it in liquid and watch it turn to pudding. That transformation is exactly what happens inside your stomach. Chia is among the richest sources of soluble fiber available, and when it meets moisture, it forms the same thick protective gel we saw with fenugreek, wrapping around the carbohydrates in your meal and slowing their absorption to a crawl. The sugar releases gradually instead of spiking and crashing, sparing you the shakiness and sudden hunger that often follow a fast carbohydrate hit. Chia also contains a plant-based omega-3 fat that helps calm the low-grade inflammation underlying insulin resistance, and calmer inflammation means cells that respond to insulin more readily. 1 to 2 tablespoons daily, stirred into yogurt, mixed into water with a splash of lemon, or blended into a smoothie, does the job. Give it roughly 10 minutes to gel before consuming it, and drink enough water alongside it, since fiber of this density needs fluid to move comfortably through your system. The sixth food shifts focus entirely, working not on the speed of digestion, but on the deeper root of why your cells stopped listening to insulin in the first place. Fatty fish, specifically salmon and mackerel. Insulin resistance is driven substantially by chronic, low-grade inflammation. And when your body carries that inflammation year after year, it physically interferes with the insulin signal at the cellular membrane. Salmon and mackerel are rich in two omega-3 fats, EPA and DHA, among the most powerful natural anti-inflammatory compounds known to nutritional science. They calm inflammatory signaling, support a healthier cell membrane, and allow the insulin receptor to function as it was designed to. Across many years of clinical observation, people who eat fatty fish consistently, twice weekly, tend to show steadier blood sugar numbers and improved blood pressure alongside it. Aim for 2 servings weekly, roughly the size of your palm each. Wild salmon, mackerel, sardines, and herring all qualify, and canned versions, often the most budget-friendly option, retain nearly all of the same benefit. The seventh food, walnuts, deserves particular attention for what it does to the lining of your blood vessels, alongside your insulin response. Rich in polyunsaturated fat and the same plant-based omega-3 found in chia, walnuts support the health of your endothelium, the delicate inner lining of blood vessels that is often among the first tissues damaged by elevated blood sugar. At the same time, the combination of fat, fiber, and protein in walnuts blunts the post-meal blood sugar rise and has been shown to lower fasting insulin, the number that quietly indicates how hard your pancreas is straining behind the scenes. A small handful, about a quarter cup or 7 to 10 whole walnuts, eaten in place of a processed snack like crackers or cookies, effectively converts a sugar spike into a flat, stable line. Keep them raw or dry roasted, never candied or honey-coated, and use them to replace less helpful snacks rather than adding them on top of an already full diet. The eighth food has spent decades being unfairly maligned. Whole eggs, yolk included. For years, people were steered away from egg yolks toward sugary breakfast cereals that did far more damage to their blood sugar than the yolk ever could. A whole egg is almost entirely protein and fat with negligible carbohydrate content, meaning it barely moves blood sugar on its own. But the deeper benefit is what researchers call the second meal effect. Beginning your day with eggs rather than toast or cereal stabilizes blood sugar not only through breakfast, but well into lunch, meaning you arrive at your next meal with calmer numbers and a smaller subsequent spike. The protein and fat also extend satiety, quietly eliminating the mid-morning craving that so often leads toward something sweet. Swapping a cereal breakfast for 2 to 3 whole eggs is consistently among the fastest visible changes on a morning glucose reading. Scramble them, boil a batch ahead for the week, fold in some spinach, and top with that avocado from earlier for a remarkably complete blood sugar-friendly breakfast. The ninth food produces the fastest visible effect of anything on this entire list. Something you could watch unfold tonight on a glucose meter if you have one at home. Apple cider vinegar. Its active ingredient, acetic acid, works through 2 simultaneous mechanisms: slowing stomach emptying so carbohydrates arrive into the bloodstream gradually and helping muscle tissue pull glucose out of the blood for immediate use as fuel. The research backing this is substantial. Work led by Dr. Carol Johnston at Arizona State University found that a tablespoon of vinegar consumed before a carbohydrate-containing meal reduced the post-meal blood sugar spike by roughly 20% in people with insulin resistance, an effect comparable in size to what some medications produce. Take 1 tablespoon, always diluted in a full glass of water, 10 to 15 minutes before a carbohydrate-heavy meal. Never consume it undiluted, since the acidity can damage tooth enamel and irritate the throat. And if you currently take any blood sugar medication, speak with your doctor first, because vinegar combined with that medication can lower your blood sugar faster than expected. The 10th and final food makes the entire premise of this conversation concrete. Lentils are, unmistakably, a carbohydrate, and they will lower your blood sugar anyway. Lentils are built around a slow-digesting, resistant starch, wrapped in soluble fiber, and accompanied by a meaningful amount of plant protein. That combination means the glucose inside a lentil releases into your bloodstream slowly and steadily over hours, rather than all at once. And lentils carry their own version of the second meal effect, meaning a bowl of lentil soup at lunch can steady your numbers well into the evening. Clinically, swapping white rice or potato for lentils a few times weekly is among the most reliable strategies for bringing down an A1C, the 3-month average measurement of blood sugar control. Aim for a half cup to a full cup of cooked lentils several times weekly, used in soups, stews, or cold salads, ideally alongside olive oil and a splash of the vinegar discussed earlier. Let me tell you about a woman I'll call Donna, because her story captures exactly why this approach works, where simple carbohydrate restriction so often fails. Donna was 63, recently retired, and frightened. Her fasting blood sugar had settled around 180, and her doctor had just recommended adding a second medication to her regimen. She had watched her own mother lose toes and eventually her eyesight to the same disease, and she did not want to spend her remaining years climbing an ever-increasing ladder of prescriptions. We did not strip her diet down to nothing. We added eggs and avocado in place of her morning cereal, a tablespoon of vinegar before her larger meals, lentils swapped in for white rice, walnuts replacing her afternoon cookie, fatty fish twice weekly, cinnamon stirred into her coffee, and broccoli sprouts layered onto her lunchtime sandwich. Within the first week, her fasting numbers had already begun to fall. Within 3 months, working closely alongside her physician, she had come off that second medication entirely, and her A1C had moved out of the diabetic range. 2 years later, that improvement has held steady. She did not starve, she ate more, simply the right things, and her own body did the rest of the work. What ties all 10 of these foods together is the reason cutting carbohydrates alone so often fails, while this approach succeeds. Each food hands insulin its job back without requiring deprivation. The fiber-rich foods slow glucose down, so your pancreas never has to panic in the first place. The fish, walnuts, and chia calm the inflammation that was jamming the cellular signal. The cinnamon and vinegar walk directly up to the insulin receptor and help it grip again. Repeat that pattern meal after meal, day after day, and the cell that had stopped answering insulin's knock slowly begins opening the door again on the first try. That, at a cellular level, is what reversing insulin resistance actually looks like. And once that shift occurs, your body begins maintaining lower blood sugar on its own, which is exactly why Donna's improvement held for 2 full years rather than fading after a few weeks. One important line needs to be drawn clearly before you begin. If you currently take insulin or a sulfonylurea, an older class of blood sugar medication, these foods can lower your blood sugar quickly enough that your existing dose may suddenly become too strong, risking a dangerous low. Add these changes under your doctor's supervision and let them adjust your medication downward as your numbers improve. Never discontinue a prescription on your own. Bring this list to your next appointment and work through it together. Here is where to begin tonight. in 5 manageable steps. First, tomorrow morning, replace cereal or toast with 2 to 3 whole eggs and half an avocado, a single swap that shapes your blood sugar for the entire day ahead. Second, tonight, soak a teaspoon of fenugreek seeds in water and drink it first thing in the morning. Third, purchase Ceylon cinnamon rather than cassia, and begin with a 1/4 teaspoon daily in coffee or oatmeal. Fourth, before your largest carbohydrate meal tomorrow, take a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar diluted in a full glass of water 15 minutes beforehand. Fifth, this week, swap white rice or potato for lentils at least twice, and put fatty fish on the menu 2 evenings. Layer these in gradually over the coming 2 weeks. You are not removing the foods you love. You are adding the foods that protect you, one at a time, until your own biology starts doing the heavy lifting it was always capable of.